Ladies and gents, hello and welcome to RG Pulse, the weekly show where we dive into all things tech and video games. But this week we are
This week it's mostly tech.
Yeah, it's all tech. It's all AMD. It's all Ryzen 7000 series, and this is part 3 of our Ryzen 7000 series coverage. Where
it's a trilogy.
It's a trilogy.
Part 3 of 3.
It is, and the finale is, of course, getting ready for gaming. Right.
That is right.
Because you can see right here, that PC. A Whitson built
beautiful PC that we built on stream.
Yep,
2 days ago.
Yep. And now you're going to overclock it.
Yeah, we're going to show off some of the new features we have on our motherboards this generation. A few ways to get a little bit of extra performance for free with almost no work whatsoever. We're going to show off kind of some really, really simple overclocking features and also some advanced overclocking features that we have this generation. And
compare them.
Oh, we're also gonna.
It's the combination of the advanced overclocking to the as the title says, the 2-click overclocking, and we're gonna see exactly how they stack up.
We're also gonna take a little peek at some PCIe Gen 5 SSD performance. Just a little peek.
Yeah, because that's one of the the more exciting bits of technology. I mean, this whole new generation of tech is looking to really just dwarf the performance in all levels, right? We're talking about DDR5. We've now got PCI 5.0, which is going to make it so that all those lanes can be faster, way more data transfer. But
spot all the fives.
it is. I guess so.
Yeah, so that's what we've been saying. All right, should we check it out? I'm finishing up a benchmark right now. I'm doing some stock benchmarks on this machine. We're doing the Hitman 3 Dartmoor benchmark, which, man, this benchmark is so fun. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It is, it's like there's a playable version and there's like a auto run version, and it's just like all these books getting shot up in a library. Really great test in terms of particle effects and physics and things like that. It's pretty CPU heavy, so it's a good benchmark for us today since we're testing CPU performance. In games and in things like Cinebench. So I've run a couple benchmarks so we can just see the stock performance. I have not tweaked any settings on this machine. This is bone stock out of the box performance right here. So we're going to wait for this to finish up. And I'm going to silence my phone because it's making a lot of noise now all of a sudden.
Classic.
I know. Rookie mistake over here. All right. So I'm really excited. So for those who missed the build stream or don't remember, we are running an X570E Hero motherboard and a Ryzen 9 7900X. So this is not the top end chip. This is the 7900X. It is a 12-core, 24-thread CPU.
Number 2. Just barely number 2.
Number 2. Yep. If you want that multi-threaded performance, but you don't want to go completely balls to, this is actually the next gen equivalent of the CPU you have in your PC.
It is. I have the 5900. Yep, and this is just the leveled up Pokemon version of mine.
It's possible I ran this at the wrong resolution, but we'll see. If not, that's okay. We are almost done. It's closing out just now.
Now,
this is my favorite. This is my favorite part of the benchmark. A guy just sometimes there's a guy that just walks in and is like, "What's going on in here?" All right, so
overall score
166 frames per second. So that is a lot.
This was in 1080p.
Yeah, we're running this at 1080p, and sorry about that. That happens and I got a zoop.
We do need to point out that you are sending me this video feed through Skype, so it's. Yeah, there could be some. I mean, it looks overall pretty good.
Quirks.
I don't know if there was some lag with some of the pages. I don't know if that was on your end or if that was on this. I mean, with Cinebench, it does naturally lag though, right? When it's okay. That's the point, right?
Yeah.
Did you see? You did see some stutters in there, right?
I'll have to watch the stream and see.
Oh,
We're also going to run one more multi-core benchmark here real quick just to see the score we get at stock. This should take like 2 seconds. So for reference, what we're seeing, what I've been kind of seeing in hardware info over here is that when we're running full bore with all the threads, we're getting like 5.1, almost like 5.2 gigahertz on half of these cores, and the other half are a little bit closer to 5.05 gigahertz. And for single thread performance, If you run a single threaded test, one core can jump all the way up to like 5.6, 5.7 gigahertz, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So here are our scores: 28,307. Not bad. Pretty actually amazing.
I definitely can't read that, but I believe you.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Someone can if they zoom in. So this is our stock performance. What we're going to do is we're going to reboot. And before we do any kind of advanced overclocking, we're just going to show what AI overclocking does. This is a 2-click solution. First, we should also take a peek at our sweet Aura Sync effects. I don't know if you noticed, Jake. I got my sweet AMD themed lighting going on here. Ryzen themed lighting. Red and orange. I finally got everything dialed in Armory Crate. This is just so nice to be able to, you can just go here, sync all of your devices up. Even my mouse and keyboard are like all synced up with everything. It's beautiful. And before we reboot, I do want to show this off. Okay. So if you guys remember from building this yesterday, we are using a new still in progress Phison E26 SSD. This is a PCIe Gen 5.0 SSD, and the speeds on this thing are insane. Okay, so I want to show this off. This is Crystal Disk Mark. We are running sequential reads and writes right now. Now, typically with Gen 4 drives, a lot of times you'd see like 7,000 megabytes per second read here and like 5,000-ish megabytes per second write. And yeah, you can see this is already a large jump. The reads and writes on this are near 10,000 megabytes per second. So, you know, that's insane.
That's ridiculous.
And I'm so excited. I mean, first of all, if you're like a video editor, you're a content creator,
well, this
is going to be amazing. I mean, all of your, you know, scrubbing through the timeline, things like that, it's just going to be so.
It's going to go through the roof.
Snappy.
I mean, it's one of the things where like before having an SSD, I found video editing to be the most painful task in the world. I just couldn't do it because scrubbing was, you know, it was a process where you really had to be patient, and it wasn't like instant, you know, boom, boom, boom to get where you want to be. But with this, I mean, do you think it'll be sooner than later where we might actually have that benefit coming into gaming as well?
Yeah, so that's what I'm really excited about here. Is I am really excited for games to start really taking advantage of direct storage. And I think we're going to start seeing that soon because that's a lot of that's built into things like Unreal Engine 5, which we're going to see a lot of games built in that engine come out in the next year or two. And you're going to start seeing just insanely fast loading times if you have one of these Gen 5 SSDs. I would love to see Microsoft bring Quick Resume to PC2. That was like my favorite feature of the Xbox Series X. It like takes you right back into the game exactly where you were as if you just paused it and walked away, except it works even if you like shut down your computer entirely. It just saves your exact state to the hard drive. And since the hard drive is so fast, it can just take you right back into the game. No loading menus, none of that stuff. So here again, these read and write speeds nearly the write speed here is nearly twice as fast as what we were seeing last gen. So I'm super excited about this. I'm not going to run the random read and write speeds yet. Phison is still optimizing the E26 firmware to deliver the exceptional read and write performance, the random read and write performance that they want to see. So I'm not going to show that off now because it's not none of this is final, but that's still really being optimized. So this is just a little taste of what's in store on the storage front. Thanks to Phison for sending us that drive and letting us play with it too. That was
the future is exciting.
The future is now. The future is wow. All right, so we are going to reboot and get into the BIOS.
I know we're not talking about gaming news, but that you just said the future is wow. Which did I just hear? World of Warcraft. They did confirm that the new retail expansion pack is November 28th, and Wrath of the Lich King came out this week, and they're going to launch their retail, expansion in 2 months after. No, 1 month and change after. It's kind of crazy. Seems like they're cannibalizing their own player base a little bit by doing that. But anyways, a little bit of gaming.
Yeah. All right. So here's the BIOS on this X570 here motherboard. So there are a number of different ways that we can go about overclocking, but I want to start by showing the easiest way that even if you have never overclocked before, even if you have no idea what you're doing, this is free performance that basically everyone should do. First, we're going to take this AI overclock tuner. We're going to set it to
especially
Expo
if you're
2.
using ROG hardware. Like, we make it really easy, right? If
Yes.
for some reason you're using a competitor's motherboard, we can't really vouch that this is going to be worth your time.
I cannot speak to their AI
right?
overclocking, but I can speak to ours.
Yes, exactly.
So, this is our RAM speeds. We set that to Expo 2. That's going to get us the rated speed on our RAM. Remember that if you just plug in, DDR5 6000 RAM and you don't do anything, it's going to run at the lowest JDEX speeds that this generation of RAM is rated for. So if you want the speed that your RAM actually advertises, you want to set that Expo setting, and then you want to come down to core ratio and change it from auto to AI optimized. That is all we're doing. I'm done.
It. Overclock.
Save changes, exit. We're now overclocked. Okay, so
and that'll get you to near peak performance with your hardware. Yeah.
Now, like if you are, an overclocking enthusiast, you can push it farther with a manual overclock, and I'll go through some of that in a little bit. But I wanted to show this off first and talk a little bit about some of these special sauce that has been inserted into AI Clover, because this is the first time we've really done AI overclocking on an AMD system in this way, and we've actually pushed it to incredible new heights. So I'm going to start by running a single threaded benchmark while I kind of explain this. But with modern Ryzen CPUs, traditionally you've had two options for overclocking it, right? You can either, I guess the easiest way to describe this to show what we saw earlier. When we're running an all-core load, like in Cinebench or something like that, you'll see it boost to 5.1, 5.2 gigahertz like we saw. And if you're running on a single thread, it'll boost much higher, which is handy in certain games that only use one or two threads and things like that. When you overclock, you kind of have to pick your poison a little bit. You can do a traditional all-core overclock, and that will greatly benefit your multi-threaded performance in things like video editing, content creation, and whatnot. I was using the wrong mouse there. That was my bad. I'm trying to click with my other mouse.
The double with PC life
here. Yeah, it's hard.
Stream.
But when you do that all-core overclock, you lose that extra single-threaded performance. Your single threads will only boost as high as your all-core overclock. So you'd actually be overclocking multi-threaded runs, but your single-core score would actually go down because it would only boost to like 5.3 gigahertz or whatever you set it to do. You will see in this test here that we're still boosting pretty high. Even though we have put on an AI overclock, we're still seeing those peaks of 5.7 gigahertz like we were before. That is because our AI overclock, well, I guess the other option is to, use the traditional boosting. You could use something like Precision Boost Overdrive to push that single-threaded performance a little bit higher. But again, you're choosing between the all-core overclock or the single-threaded overclock with PBO. On our new AM5 motherboards, we have a feature called Dynamic OC Switcher. We actually originally introduced this last generation on our Crosshair 8 Dark Hero motherboard, but now this is available on our entire X670E lineup. And what it does is it can detect whether, you tell it kind of where you want the threshold to be in terms of amperage, but if you are running a really high power multi-threaded load, you can tell it, use my manual overclock for that multi-threaded load. I want high performance on that. And then when it's using a smaller single-threaded load, you tell it, don't use my all-core overclock, revert to the CPU's normal behavior and boost that one core really, really high. Okay. And if you're using PBO, the PBO is kind of like just boosting that stock behavior. It's expanding the limits, the temperature and power limits of what it can do. And so you can tell it to do that under single-threaded loads. So you are getting the best of both worlds. This is huge because the last few generations, there hasn't really been a great way to do that. And you kind of had to choose whether you wanted an all-core overclock or you wanted to overclock single, but you couldn't get both. Now you can get both, and that's all built in to the AI overclocking. You can do it manually. I'll show you later, but for if you enable AI overclocking, it's going to automatically overclock your all core loads. It's going to automatically boost your single threaded performance with PBO, and it will dynamically switch between them without you having to lift a friggin' finger. That is so cool as an overclocker. Like, I've overclocked every PC that I have owned for the past for over a decade, right? And now I feel like I don't really have to anymore. I can just do this and run with it.
I was always kind of mad at overclocking because, I mean, we actually were talking offline a little bit. I would always try to overclock my memory and make me kind of just hate it, like, miserably, because it's easy to go a little too far, maybe have some blue screens, and it's not necessarily something you determine immediately, right? You'll be 30 minutes through a gaming session, and then you're going to actually get the blue screen, and that's what was so frustrating for me. So I've just been converted to these 2-click overclock settings all the time because, you know what? It works so well that it's great, but it may not be unlocking the full potential.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up RAM overclocking too, because it's funny. RAM historically, in my experience, is more finicky than CPU overclocking. RAM is just tough, especially if you end up like adding 2 more sticks and you're mixing kits and things like that. Like, I have 2 of the same. It's 2 different kits. It's 2 kits of 2 in my main PC. So it's the same exact brand, same exact model number, same speeds, everything. But because it's 2 separate kits, they're not necessarily guaranteed to work together, right? And in fact, those 2 kits use separate. One of them uses Samsung chips, and one of them uses SK Hynix chips. You're not always guaranteed that it's going to be the same. And so then it's all of a sudden becomes a crapshoot. One thing that's exciting about this is, again, provided you're buying all your sticks in one kit, we now have AMD Expo, which we talked about on Monday with our friend Donnie over at AMD. Yep. You know, Intel has always had their XMP, their extreme memory profile. It's a one-click option in the BIOS to give you the rated speeds on your RAM. AMD systems have had things like that. Usually it's up to the motherboard manufacturers to kind of like make their own version of XMP for that, or sometimes it's and sometimes it's called DOCP. But now we have Expo, which is actually like an open standard created by AMD. They've worked with motherboard and memory manufacturers to kind of standardize that across the board for AMD systems, which is really, really nice to see. So again, you go into the BIOS, click, your RAM is running it at the speeds you.
And Donnie did mention that XMP will still work, right? It's still there, but you do have, this now.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty exciting as well. I love seeing the maturation of these platforms, right? It's been a few years for Ryzen. Ryzen was such a game changer for AMD, and I have just loved seeing where it started and where it's come. Because when it started, it was really, really exciting, and it's only gotten better and better and better over time. And like I said in our stream on Monday, this is the first time I've ever upgraded a CPU on the same platform. Like, usually when you upgrade, like, you have to get a motherboard really and RAM and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was unheard of in the past.
It was crazy to see in 2 generations. I went from a Ryzen 2600. Not 2600X. It was a 2600 that was overclocked, so similar to a 2600X. And I went to a 5800X, and wow, what a jump! Just on the same motherboard, same RAM, only 2 generations away. I mean, a couple years before that, we were seeing, middling performance jumps between generations.
Right.
Any ASUS approved AM5 RAM. So if you go to the support page for your motherboard, you Google your motherboard, you go to our website, you click on the support tab, there should be something called a QVL list, which is qualified vendor list. And I didn't that will oh yeah, this is useful. I mean, you should be able to buy most RAM, and a lot of times it will work. But if you want something that like we've really kind of tested and kind of certified, again, I don't think anything is a guarantee, because technically even running RAM at the speeds on the sticker is overclocking. So there's no guarantees. But if you want a better chance of everything working, looking at that qualified vendor list is usually a good way to do it. Any DDR5 will work, as Milky Ice said in chat. But if you want something that we've actually tested on that motherboard with that CPU, it can help to go to the qualified vendor list and check it out.
I know we've been talking to Kingston Fury a lot lately. That's their new line, so I assume that's one of the good options to look at. But check out the list on your motherboard page.
Yeah, we definitely have some manufacturers that we work with a little bit more closely and whatnot, and stuff like that as well. But We test other stuff too. All right, here's our multi-threaded benchmark, and you will see that this is running at a nice, 5.35 and 5.15 on the all cores. So that's a nice jump over what we were seeing before, which was only like 5.1, 5.2. And yeah, our single-threaded performance is about the same as what we had last time, which is, you would think, oh, why is it the same? Well, ordinarily, if you did an all-core overclock, it would be lower. And I tested this. I did a manual all-core overclock without turning on dynamic OC switcher, and sure enough, yeah, my single-core performance went down, but our multi-core performance went up by over 1,000 points. So There you go. There's that. We can run the Hitman benchmark too here if we want to see how this would affect gaming performance. Guys, I just also love this benchmark. We can right, here we go. Boom, boom.
Do they kill people with shoes in the benchmark?
No. So I've actually started play. I had not played the new Hitman trilogy yet. I'd never played a Hitman game. But I just started playing it like a week ago with Hitman 1, and man, is it fun. There's so many different ways to like complete these different objectives in this game. It's just it's a fun kind of stealth romp. So how does OC work with Ryzen 7000 since it already boosts itself as much as it can until it hits 95C? That's a great question. So 95C does seem, I know that seems hot. These chips are rated to work to run even farther than that. So you could run it up to like 100+ degrees if you wanted to. The other thing to kind of keep in mind is a lot of time these chips are set to run at a certain frequency at a certain voltage level, and they'll boost the voltage with it until it hits its power or temperature limits. Now, your individual CPU, not like your model CPU, but the individual chip you hold in your hand, might have a chance at actually being able to boost higher with lower voltage, right? And this is something that, I mean, this is why people undervolt, right? You can undervolt your CPU, get the same performance with lower temperatures. If you're overclocking, you can kind of do the same thing. You can keep the voltage the same and maybe boost it manually yourself a little bit more than it's designed to boost, and you will see better performance at the same temperatures. And the AI overclocking takes all this stuff into account. So I'm not seeing temperatures that are that much crazy higher. We can actually look at our temperatures after this finishes and see where they are. You would be surprised. When I was testing this earlier, it wasn't jumping up to like 105 degrees or anything like that. And there's some stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the stream that lets you tweak that even more and try and keep temperatures under control while boosting a little bit further. This is the fun of overclocking. So this is our last benchmark on AI overclocking, and then we'll go show some of these more advanced features. All right, where are we? Our last one was 100. Nope. Yeah, 160.
56, 63, like
166.
Like
it's 166. I wrote it down.
Smart man.
It's 177. There we go. So that's there you go. That's like a 6-7% performance boost, which, that's pretty good for literally 2 clicks and no work whatsoever.
I mean, it's like thoughtless, right?
Yeah,
you go into your BIOS, you click 2 drop downs, back in, done.
And I actually saw bigger boosts in some other games. So like obviously in a strategy game, you're going to see even bigger boosts. So when I tested Total War Warhammer 3, in that benchmark, I saw a 20% performance boost.
A little bit
just
more
from
CPU
AI overclocking.
Heavy game.
Yeah, because it's a really CPU heavy game that's using. Okay, so you'll see here. I think my temperatures actually went down with AI overclocking because I was running at 95 before. So
what are you at now? That's hard for me
92.
to read.
Sorry, the max is 93.
Wow.
92.5. 93.
Yeah, a little bit
so
better thermals.
When you're able to tinker with the voltage yourself, you are able to give yourself a little bit more temperature headroom to push the chip. So in this case, I just must have a really, really good chip. I won the silicon lottery, as they say, and I can really push the multipliers high without increasing the voltage that much, which is pretty awesome. So in that case, I was actually able to get a little bit lower temperatures. Okay, let's take a step back into the BIOS and have some fun with some more advanced features. By the way, another test that I ran that I'm not going to run here on screen, but another test that I ran for this overclock, I did a video encode in Handbrake. It was like took about a half hour. And once I enabled AI overclocking, oops, I forgot to mash the delete key. After I enabled AI overclocking, it knocked like 5 minutes off my encode, which, you know, is a small amount of time. But when you're a fledgling YouTuber trying to get your latest upload and you're behind schedule, that 5 minutes is
it makes a difference. And yeah, what AIO is he using or cooler? He's using an AIO. It's the Ryujin.
I'm using the Ryujin 2 360. Yeah. So yes, this is on liquid cooling.
You can see the little LED display it has on it.
Display.
You can
so it's not
using whatever you want on that too, which is super fun.
So I should have mentioned this while we were doing the benchmarks, but I actually had it showing the system. I had it showing the clock speed and the system temperature. Did. It seemed appropriate for today's thing, but you can also put your own custom animations on there and things like that. When it's in the BIOS, it just shows the default animation because it's not interfacing with Armory Crate. But yeah, so, okay. That was just AI overclocking. 2 settings, that's all we did. If we wanted to tinker and push the systems to the absolute limit, if you're just the kind of person, you're an overclocking enthusiast, you know, the AI overclocking is available on all of our products, right? Like you can buy the tough motherboard and get that up and running. If you're the kind of person who wants to tinker, that's where our Hero and Extreme X570E motherboards come into play. You're going to have a lot of features to play with to get this overclock running. So let's look at what using that dynamic OC switcher would look like in a manual situation. So you can take your CPU core ratio here and boost the multiplier. That's like kind of the most basic manual overclock. What I actually did, this is pretty cool. So we have a feature called CPU core ratio per CCX. A CCX or CCD is the core chiplet die, and the CCX is like the group of cores within those chiplets. So if you guys remember when Ryzen came out, the big thing was all the cores aren't on one die anymore. They're now split between what they call chiplets, which are like multiple little dies on the CPU. And one of your dies may have the ability to overclock higher for a certain voltage than the other die. Again, it's this whole silicon lottery thing that we were talking about. So I actually found, and I haven't like super deep stress tested this, but just in basic tests, I found that this and our research team, they helped me out. Our R&D team helped me out a lot with this too. This this core, this first CCX, I could get it up to 54, which is 5.4 gigahertz. And this one, I was able to get it up to a multiplier of 52, so 5.2 gigahertz. That means half the cores will boost to 5.4 gigahertz, half the cores will boost to 5.2 when you're under an all-core load. And you can do even more granular. You could do 51.75. If that wasn't stable, you could knock it down just a little bit and see see where. Yeah, pretty cool. And then
this could vary slightly from chip to chip.
Yep. And so, yes, exactly. So every chip that's why you need to you start ramping up slowly and stress testing. This isn't really a beginner's guide to manual overclocking. They're out there, and I've actually written some of them. If you go to PC Mag and look up their overclocking guides, those were written by me back in the day. And then, so this voltage is set to auto. That's where it's kind of shooting that voltage a little bit higher than it needs to, because the default behavior is to stay safe. It needs to be absolutely rock solid stable for everyone. But because we're manually overclocking, we can play the silicon lottery and see how low we can push the voltage. In this case, we can get both of these running at those speeds at a core vid of like 1.273 is what our R&D team found. And again, I haven't like pushed these to the absolute limit, but this is a pretty solid. This is going to go farther than AI overclocking did. I don't know if I could go farther, if I need to scale back a little bit, but we're already going to get better scores with this than we would with our AI overclock. A little bit better. Like I said, AI overclock gets you like 90% of the way there. But so under this, if we just left it as is, we would get that higher all core speed, but single core performance would be lower than it is at stock. That's why we switched this dynamic OC switcher to enabled. For the current threshold, this is in amps. We're going to put that at 90 amps for this particular chip, this 7900X. It could be different if you have like a 7600X or whatever. And then just for giggles, we're going to go into Precision Boost Overdrive. And we are going to set this to enhancement. Again, this is like kind of a one-click solution that there's no reason not to do this. This is just going to take that single or lightly threaded performance and push a little bit higher. Precision Boost Overdrive basically takes the limits that are baked into the CPU. You know, when it boosts, it says, I'm going to boost until I hit either this temperature limit or this power limit or whatever. And this basically takes those limits and stretches them a little bit farther so that when it's doing its auto boosting thing, it'll push it a little bit further to the edge. If you wanted to go farther, you could set this scaler to manual and take it up to 8x or 10x, something like that. That's going to, again, let it take those limits and let it stay at those limits for a longer period of time than it would normally. And the other really, really cool feature that is worth checking out, I'm not going to do this right now because I have not dug into this for this particular chip, but the curve optimizer is super cool. So this is kind of like a little undervolt to go along with your lightly threaded boosting. Again, we're talking about, you know, when you're running a single or double threaded app right now with PBO. You could set this to all, let's set it to all cores for our example, and you would say 5. -5, that means it's going to undervolt your CPU just a little bit, okay? And that means you might have better temperatures and you'll have slightly lower power usage, which means that it can actually boost a little bit farther before it hits its limit. If that's stable, you could put it at -8 or -10. What's really cool about this is that you can actually do this per core. Now, this is a little bit tedious to test, but this is going to get you the best possible performance, right? Because so that means, you know, you might find that this core is stable at -10 and this core is only stable at -5. And actually this core is only stable at 0, at its stock voltage, right? And so then once you find the ideal number for all of those cores, when you're in a lightly threaded application, your CPU is really just going to make the absolute most of each of those individual cores, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when I did with this manual overclock that I just put into place, I'm not gonna reboot and run all the benchmarks again right now because I don't want to. I know that's like watching paint dry for the people watching right now a little bit. But I was able to get even higher scores than we got with AA overclocking. I was getting like 29,800 on the multi-core and 2,040 for single core. So both of those are higher than what we were seeing before.
Did you write those numbers down for comparison or no?
Yes. Okay. Oh, sorry, the old ones. Our AI overclock, we got 29,485. For my manual overclock earlier, I got 29,803. So it's a small jump, but you know, it's there. And same
gains.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, I didn't actually try to push this any farther than this because I kind of ran out of time before today's stream. I had so much.
Oh, you just built the PC and this actually isn't your normal
this
job.
Was a very quick. This is not actually my job, you guys. Overclocking PCs. This is actually someone else's job. And then I kind of repeated some of the stuff that they found just in general for the 7900X and saw if I could push it any further on mine. But it was very quick and dirty. I didn't have to push it any farther than this, and I didn't have time to see how stable this was. It's possible that I would have had to push it back a little bit. So before I go, I'm just going to mention a few really advanced things. But first, I'm going to check chat because I haven't checked.
Yeah, they're just chilling, talking about overclocking as a whole. But,
okay. Sorry,
I think for a lot of, I mean, this is what Whitson's going through right now. Really, is the hyper enthusiast stuff, right? Where this is not a must do if you have a PC. We have the tools, as we mentioned, for the 2-click overclocking already in place. But if you really want to go full on hyper enthusiast, you know, he's giving you a crash course on how to do it because even I don't know.
I wouldn't even call it a crash course. I'm trying to show. I want to show off the features that we have. Yeah. But if I were given a crash, I'm actually a very I'm not a quick and dirty overclock kind of guy. This was a weird week for me because I don't usually just like, oh, let's punch it in to see what happens. And granted, I did have some help from our R&D team, but usually when I overclock a system, I start at stock and I just start raising the multiplier by like a couple and just going through crazy amounts of stress tests. I'll run Prime 95, I'll run IDA, I'll run OCCT, and I'm very, very cautious because a lot of times when you're doing it quick and dirty style like this, you're changing too many variables at once, and it's hard to know what made your system unstable.
That's where I go wrong.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that I forgot to show, another thing that's definitely worth setting. Gosh, I don't even remember where this feature is. You definitely are going to want to set the load line calibration is a really useful feature as well. Gosh, I don't know where it went in this menu. That prevents your voltage from drooping too much, and that's if you're overclocking. I definitely recommend turning that on wherever the heck I put it. I don't remember where it is. It's in there, guys. I promise. And it even recommends a certain setting for you. If you go in, it's like a scale of 1 to 10, and it says if you're overclocking, we recommend load line calibration level 5. Okay. So you can usually just set it to that and be good. So if you are really advanced, right? You're the kind of person who would go into this tweaker's paradise menu. There are a few really cool features. You can change the CPU's B clock or base clock. The base clock is literally it's 100 by default. You can see that over here on the right. It determines kind of the clock speed of your CPU, but also of like the Infinity Fabric and the RAM and things like that. It's all this interconnected stuff. And in the old days, a lot of times you would try to raise base clock to overclock your CPU, like before the days of unlocked multipliers. But then that would overclock your RAM, and you'd have to like balance all of these things. It is really old school, and it was a nightmare. And then we came out with unlocked multipliers, like 10 years ago, and things just got so much easier. What's cool is that we have made it a little bit easier to kind of go back to the old days of B clock overclocking. You can use the asynchronous clock feature to disconnect the base clock from the memory and things like that. So, yep, asynchronous mode. And what's cool about that is that allows you to play with the base clock without worrying about all of those other, like that balancing act. And what's even cooler is that then you merge that with this new feature called Ryzen Core Flex. And this lets you set a number of algorithms, basically, where you say, if the PC is below this temperature, or if the PC is running below this amperage level, do this. And if it is not, if it's running above that, then do this. You have 3 different steps that you can set. So what's cool about this is that you can, for example, raise that base clock during lower threaded workloads where temperatures aren't a concern. And you can push the base clock a little bit higher to get even more out of that CPU. And then under heavy workloads, when you're pushing up against temperature limits, you can say, just set the base clock to the stock 100 and let it fly. So there are a lot of little things like that that you can really, really get your hands dirty and just tweak every little variable in a number of different scenarios to get the absolute best out of your PC, no matter what you are doing. It's no longer this, well, you overclock and it'll be good in these scenarios, but maybe in these it's not as good. It's not like that anymore. If you're willing to dig in, you can do some pretty amazing stuff. And that's overclocking on Ryzen 7000 with ASUS, at least some of it. There's so much more here to please whether power user or newcomer alike. And there's a lot to play with. Yeah. But you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to exit without saving changes because I'm not going to mess with that right now. If that's not you, though, just turn on the AI overclock. Turn on Expo. Turn on AI overclocking. You're done. Free performance. It's free, and it's performance. Even if it's like, it's not maybe as much performance as I'd like. Well, it's free, so there's no reason not to.
And it's also like a good starting point if you just want to do that to get started, and then when you've got free time another day, come back and actually start tinkering and start doing your manual overclocking, and then dial it all in. And
you know what? Even if you are a bit more experienced, the AI overclock does give you a really nice starting point. Because you can turn on the AI overclocking, then run hardware info and kind of see what the clocks and voltages are at. And you say, okay, I know my system is stable there, so I don't need to start at the very bottom. I can start there, go set it manually to those settings, and then start working my way up with the multiplier, working my way down with the voltage, and see where I can push it. So the AI overclocking, even if you are a manual kind of person, it's handy as a starting point. Should we just I want to jump into this real quick. I want to.
Yeah,
someone was asking if we're gonna. I don't have any like esports titles downloaded on this. Sorry guys. I was trying to download some titles that had built-in benchmarks so that I could do this in a somewhat timely manner in the middle of the night last night.
I'm trying to think of like what games have it. I remember Borderlands had one, I believe.
Yeah. So there are. Oops, that's not what. Oh no, that's what I want to do. There are a number of good ones. I was trying to look for something that would fluctuate nicely with CPU performance like this. I tried Forza Horizon 5. That didn't get as huge of a jump. That's a pretty GPU bound game. Total War Warhammer 3 was an obvious game to try because strategy games are going to scale well with. Oh, what does that mean?
Right.
Oh, look at this. Okay. Oh, look at all these choices of guns I have. So the other thing about CPU overclocking too is you will see improvement in some games, not necessarily all of them. Esports games are, as Milky Ice was pointing out, a really great usually an area where CPU is going to matter, especially if you're playing at really high frame rates, 1080p, things like that. You're going to be CPU bound in a lot of those scenarios. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Am I just supposed to shoot the books? Ha ha.
So I think some of the lag that we're seeing is probably just Skype. Because Skype is not the perfect way to do this. Well, it's what we have.
It's true.
Options.
It's not.
Yeah.
We weren't really trying to show off a lot of gameplay demos today. It was really it was about the benchmarks and what we could accomplish. It still looks
pretty good overall, but every once in a while it has this stutter to it that I don't think you're seeing.
Can I knock this chandelier off? That'd be cool. Oh,
wow.
I did.
I've
never
never
fell
played
on the
these
table.
games, but that has me intrigued.
You should. It's really fun. So like the whole idea of these games is that you can knock people out and dress up in their clothes. I don't know how to stop sneaking. I have only played this with a controller before.
Where it just kills someone with a shoe repeatedly.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to carry out your objectives. And then after you play a level once, you can go back and they'll give you like challenges. Like, okay, see if you can do it with poison, or see if you can do it without being detected. See if you can do it without saving, right? Repeatedly throughout the level, which is really hard. Okay, really hard. I killed the ship in a bottle. Why Skype and not Discord? Skype, actually, the video quality in Skype is much better in terms of like our cameras, because it has NDI, which routes my video signal straight to Jake.
Yeah, it's not even that it's better. It uses less hardware and it's easier to do for this kind of streams. I wouldn't say that it's like necessarily better. There are pros and cons to each platform, I feel, but I would love Discord to have NDI one of these days. I just don't know that we'll ever get it.
So I've got an explosive rubber ducky here, but you have to get close to it. I don't think anyone's coming in. I don't know how to get out of sneak mode because I don't know how to play this game with a mouse and keyboard.
You're playing with controller on the couch.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, esports are going to be good for this if you're playing a really GPU heavy game or you're playing at high resolutions. CPU overclocking may not show you as big of a difference in your average frame rate, but those minimum frame rates, you can see up there, it says minimum 22. That's like actually ridiculously low. And I don't think most of my spikes downward are not all the way to 22. But like in Total War Warhammer, for example, my minimum frame rate was on stock. Oh no, where'd it go? I guess I deleted it. Bummer. So if your minimum frame rate, if you're dropping below 60 or something like that, just a quick drop that'll manifest as a stutter. So most of the game will be smooth, but occasionally it will stutter. CPU overclocking can often help with that. So the game isn't going to, your frame rate isn't going to necessarily jump a huge amount if you're GPU bound, but you will see fewer little stutters here and there, which is also really nice. Like that smooths out the overall experience a lot. And so even if you're not playing esports games, even if you're playing at higher resolutions, that CPU overclock is nice to try and get a more stable experience. Oh, I can't shoot the harp. Anyway.
Nobody likes stutters. Nobody likes lag in any form.
Nope, it's not good. How good is the Stadia streaming? I mean, it would be the same. I don't know what you're asking, No Pulse XBL. I'm sorry.
I think he's just asking about Stadia's service, but
I haven't used it in a while.
I have no idea. I've never used it.
I've used Stadia. I've used GeForce Now. I like GeForce Now a lot. Lately, I've been because I have Game Pass, and so now I've been using Microsoft's game streaming a lot, especially on my ROG phone, which is pretty. And And man, it actually runs really, really well. I wouldn't use it necessarily for competitive esports titles, but like, I can do a Forza Horizon race. I can win a Forza Horizon race on streaming, which is saying something, right? Like if I can win a race, that means it's working okay. I also find it really nice for games like Hades. If I'm just going on like a farming run, and I'm not trying to actually like win and get to the end, like, yeah, it's useful for that. It's like, I'm on my phone. I can pass the time just by like doing a 20-minute run in Hades, or like Elden Ring. If I needed to farm some runes, I'm not going to go fight a boss, unless I'm sitting in front of the machine with minimal latency, maybe. But if I'm streaming, yeah, I can just do like a farming run. That's not on Game Pass. I was doing that using Steam streaming from one room to the other.
Yeah, just talking about those platforms in general, I think that technology will get more and more appealing with time as our infrastructure improves. There's more and more fiber rollout happening, and all of those, every node, every access point is latency added, right?
Yep.
And as the infrastructure improves, we're just going to see a better experience with game streaming. And you've said on stream that you think that's the future.
I think it's the far future.
I will say
that in terms of right now, especially, yes, every link in the chain does like add a little bit of latency. And so the more improvements we see across the board, the better it's going to be. I think we're going to see a lot of game streaming companies. Like I know Microsoft has I think published a white paper on this in the past, talk about different solutions that kind of work around some of those problems, like using AI to anticipate some of the moves you'll make and calculating a few possible frames based on buttons you might press, and then sending you that frame as soon as they get the button pressed. So you don't have to wait for it to render. Stuff like that is really cool. Interesting technology that could push that latency down. And another thing is, for most people, by far the weakest link in the chain is your router at home. Like, yes, there's a little bit of latency in your connection to the internet. Yes, there might be a little latency in the server or rendering the frame, but most people's Wi-Fi sucks, right? And so getting a really good router, like one of our ROG Raptures, or maybe a mesh Wi-Fi system like our Zen Wi-Fi system. I know we have a ROG mesh Wi-Fi system coming out, but I don't think it's available yet. That can make a huge difference in your game streaming experience, because you're not trying to connect to some router buried in a closet on the complete opposite end of the house that was built 15 years ago. You're connecting to like a Wi-Fi 6E router with minimal congestion from other devices in your house, and you're connecting to a node that's in your bedroom that's closer to you. That kind of stuff I have personally found makes a really, really big difference. And so, if you want to take advantage of game streaming, you want to see what it's all about, but you're having like latency issues, that's the first place I would look. Nothing will replace LAN parties where everybody lugs their system with them. Yeah, and that's why this case is awesome, because it has those straps on the back, so you can just carry it.
Steps on the top.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, I was really excited at how far I was able to push the system with like no work, but I also like doing the work. So no matter who you are, we've got something for you.
That's the best part, right? You've got the easy and you've got the enthusiast level, which will get you the reward of better performance, right? So you should be rewarded for putting in the time and effort. Well,
the tweaking is sometimes just fun.
Some people enjoy it. Some people
don't. A compulsion.
I just want to
once you start, you can't stop.
No, dude, I want to build that PC. I want to be proud of it. I want to turn it on, and I want everything to be ready, right? Like I use Ninite.com, get all my software installed.
I love Ninite.
Just like Insta, give me all my stuff, port over all my files, and then play my video games, right?
I do recommend, even if you are using the AI overclocking, it should be quite stable. We've designed it that way, but if you're going to use the AI overclocking and the AMD Expo, again, remember that you're still overclocking. It's a good idea to run a stress test after you do that. I really like, for memory, I actually lately been really liking a program called HCL MemTest. It's a little bit more work to run than some of the old memory testers, but you basically like open multiple instances of it to test different segments of your RAM in Windows. Really great little free program. Or you can buy it and have it, you don't have to open multiple instances. It'll just do it all for you. And then for CPU, there are a ton of different options. I'm old school. I still use Prime 95, but I'll also test with like OCCT, because it has a number of different options you can tweak to test different types of workloads, like AVX. HI to 64 is classic. A lot of different stuff Pi fast if you're like really, really old school and you want to just calculate pi and see how that runs. I do recommend running those to make sure that your system is absolutely stable. Run them for like a few hours. You'll see the hottest your temperatures will get. You'll see, the absolute most balls to the wall workload. And if your system is going to crash, and if it doesn't crash, which it probably won't under just like a simple AI overclock, you're golden. You can feel very confident in your new PC and all the free performance you just got.
The good life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And now I'm going to go sleep for a week. Because
no,
I was up all night overclocking and I'm so tired because I just had to dig into all the manual settings. Marbles. We gotta do some marbles.
Yeah, we gotta do.
LTI says, "LOL, carrying Helios to a LAN party instead of my favorite G14." Yeah, that's true. If I had a Zephyrus G14, but the Helios can have a 6700 XT in it.
Dude, you want to know the most tragic thing, and this is partially because I don't necessarily trust my friends well enough, but I've got all these laptops here. My house is made for LAN parties, right?
I know, it really is.
I could have the easiest LAN party with like the flip of a switch where like everything's here. I've got Ethernet, just line everything up, get it all plugged in. I could easily fit like, I don't know, 20, 40 people in my basement. My basement's
that's a lot.
Fully finished.
A big basement.
Yeah. Well,
I guess basements by their nature are usually like the length and width of your entire house.
Yeah, it's almost 1,400 square feet down here. So.
Oh, nice. So jealous.
We got plenty of room, and a lot of it is not occupied room. So it's like the fact that we have yet to do a LAN party is actually just kind of sinful. But I also don't necessarily want my friends hanging out, cracking open some beers and using these laptops.
Using work laptops? Yeah, probably
It's not the best idea.
Not the best idea.
We're going to do this in Inconceivable Celestial Crank because it's a great name, and it will eliminate theoretically 43% of you. Yeah.
So the last LAN party that I had, I actually hosted one. I don't host a lot of LAN parties. I haven't been to a lot of LAN parties in my day. But when my wife was having her baby shower, I had all of the husbands come over to our house and we set up, because I have so many PCs, right? So I set up, this PC was running on one TV and this PC was running on another TV, and we did like 4-on-4 Rocket League.
Nice.
And it was so freaking fun.
Yeah, that does sound fun.
Oh, it was a good time. And I played Rocket League, obviously, but I had never played the mode where you have like the weird items and stuff. I didn't know that was even a thing.
Yeah.
It's like Mario Kart meets Rocket League. The chaos is just for a LAN party of people, like most of these people had not even played Rocket League before, right? So it was kind of like, it's easy to learn, tough to master. We weren't like try-harding it, which makes the crazy item mode like way more fun.
Yeah. That's
like
great. That sounds like a good time. Yeah, I think it's not the last time I ran a LAN party. I don't think. I hope not. No, there's no way. I ran a LAN party for my bachelor party. I was like, right before I got married. I was like, everyone's like, what do you want to do? My buddy got like, had like a trip to Vegas for his when we went. But like, nope. I'm like, we're having a LAN party, guys. That's it.
My buddy did something similar. We all rented like an Airbnb and we just like played. It was right after the Halo Master Chief Collection came out, and we used to like play Halo in high school all the time with this group of guys. And so it was like, 5-7 years later, it was like, we're all gonna get together, rent this house, and just like play Halo the whole time. And someone was like, wow, you guys didn't like go to Vegas or like go to the clubs? And he was like, no, because I can do that with my wife. The whole point of the bachelor party is to do stuff that I'm not going to be able to do as much when I get married. And that is playing Halo all day and all night, eating junk food with my friends. Like,
well, the funniest part about me doing a LAN party for my bachelor party is my wife was mad because she couldn't go.
I'll tell you something real funny. The biggest difference in my life that I have found being married, right, is that before I was married, every time I would like go out to like a party at someone's house or whatever, I would just be like, man, I hope there are gonna be some girls there, right? Like always like on the. And now that I'm married, every time we go to a party, I'm like, man, I hope there are gonna be some dudes there. Like that's the difference.
Amen.
I had lots of dude friends back then and no girlfriend, and now I have a wife and no dude friends.
For me, it's just I hope there are gonna be some nerds there. Because I need to talk about nerdy stuff. And actually, my neighbors, like, this is just funny because my neighbors recently hosted like a little get together with some new guys that moved into the neighborhood, some new couples that moved in. And they were like, oh, we think you should get to meet each other. You guys are all in your 30s. Like, Dude, like we were like talking about Rebels and Clone Wars and like
Yes.
one of the guys like collects like Star Wars Legos. I was like, oh my God, you've been living next
Did
like
we just become best friends?
You've been living 3 houses down. He plays classic WoW. He lives 3 houses down. He's been there for like 2 years and I've like never met the guy.
Dude.
It's just like
I mean,
man, we've
had
goofing.
a number of those. I was at my son's soccer game last week and I was talking to one of my son's friends' moms and she was telling me about her husband and I was like, this guy sounds like my soulmate. Like, can we? This sounds
Raider
excellent.
Gator. Raider Gator.
Nice job,
Congratulations.
Raider Gator.
Type in chat to claim your win. Yeah, no, dude. Gotta find my nerd homies so I can nerd out.
I'm with you. We're having like 20 people over tonight, so it's like all people I haven't really met. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, good luck. Good luck.
Thanks. I'm really tired. I need to go take a nap before I like host a large gathering.
Thank you for all your hard efforts in overclocking. Raider Gator will be in touch via private message soon. The next few weeks on the stream are going to be a bit weird, as I'll definitely be streaming Wednesday, Thursday. We'll have gaming streams on Wednesdays and Pulse on Thursdays. Beyond that, I think Lucky is actually going to be streaming some. Maybe not next week, but soon you should be seeing, I think, Friday streams from Lucky. But yeah, I'm taking some time off for the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to be in Taiwan for 2 weeks. So the whole month of October is going to be a little bit weird, and I'll do my best to stay on top of giveaways. I know they're not necessarily always Monday morning, but I am trying to weed out multi-accounters. Like it is something that we are actively working on. But we may be talking to Twitch directly in Taiwan, so hopefully we can get some tips, good
tricks.
Help with combating it without it being a ton of labor. Whitson, again, congrats. Look at that beautiful PC. You excited to
now I gotta pack it up and send it away.
You gonna put one of those phone pack things in it?
No. So what I'm gonna just take the GPU out.
I'll put it in its box.
And put it in its box, and then I'll just send the machine in the box that the case came in to Eric, and I'll send the GPU separately because I think he needs some of these other boxes too. Might have stuff that he needs in them. So I'm just going to try and get it all out of my house.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure Eric will be thrilled to have a new toy to play with.
No, Pulse says, Whitson did a giveaway for the latest phone. He says you're going to send it directly to me. That's a message he's going to send you on your back. He's going to try and scam you. I don't know if I'll be streaming it all next week, guys. So yeah, you would be found out pretty quickly. I do want to stream Metal Hellsinger. It does seem worth, if I'm going to play it, we got to stream it. I mean, Matt Heafy's in it. He's our boy. He's Team ROG. And we got to represent on the channel.
Overwatch 2 comes out next week as well.
Oh, that's true.
That's probably what I'll play on Wednesday. So maybe you'll want to join. I don't know. I was thinking of playing that Wednesday because that's on the 4th, I think.
Wednesday. Yeah, I could do that. Maybe that'd be fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe we'll do a shorter stream. I don't know, but I definitely am interested. Their new Japanese girl. She's got kitsune as part of her kit, which is Japanese word for fox, and it's like a very it's like a spiritual animal in Japanese culture.
Oh, cool.
And she's a support, so she's like a support version of Genji, basically, is what it looks like.
Interesting.
And she looks like my kind of character, so I'm really excited to try to play as her. Personally, I'm sure there's going to be a million people trying to play the new characters.
I am really excited to continue playing as Soldier 76.
Yeah, you would. Yep. Nothing wrong with that. If that's what you like, then that's what you like. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next Wednesday with some Overwatch 2, I think. Till then, GG's.
GG's.
Whitson, get some sleep.
I will.